All right. You want to tell the audience who you are?
Sure. My name is Cam Ayala, and you guys may have known me from Hannah Brown's season of The Bachelorette and season 6 of Bachelor in Paradise.
All right. Uh, we're going to start with a couple of the sent in from our followers. First one is have you received an apology from Mike Johnson?
So I wish this was just like a binary yes no
Yeah.
answer, but I, I guess whenever a lot of the media sources started to refollow my story with the amputation, one of the big points of it was, well, you talked about almost getting an amputation when you were on Hannah Brown's season, and that was kind of the conduit of Mike telling Hannah about the whole pity rose and basically negating my whole medical story. And I still hadn't had received an apology from Mike Johnson, after the surgery, and
Yeah.
I guess that put a lot of pressure on his followers who may have heard some of my other podcast interviews where I was asked basically the same
Uh,
question. And at that point, he had not apologized. And so he finally sends me this DM, which, by the way, he has my cell phone number.
uh,
Like at this point, like if it's a sincere apology, like just call me or text me. Like that's
yeah.
a bare minimum you can do. But he sent me this 3-part video message on my DM on Instagram where he was like, I could tell at some sort of event or festival. So he was, I guess, kind of half-assed checking in, but he never apologized
Uh,
about what he said or what he did back then. And he even went as far as saying, I don't really remember what I said. So I'm like, let me refresh your memory. So I sent him the
yeah.
YouTube clip of verbatim what he said, and then just crickets after that. So, I mean, if someone asked me, did Mike apologize? Honestly, no. He never
Yeah.
straight up said, hey, I'm sorry about that. I'm sorry what you're going through. He just kind of gave this like backhanded, I wouldn't even really call it
Yeah.
apology. I mean, out of respect for him, I'm not going to share the video that he sent
Yeah.
out
No.
because I didn't even really say anything. It's honestly a waste of people's time to listen to this 3-minute babble of him. So, but I'm a believer, so I'm not holding a grudge. I do forgive him, even though there wasn't an official apology from him. But I know I'm just ready to move on with my life and squash that whole thing with him because it was,
Yeah.
in the grand scheme of things, so long ago.
Yeah. Because you don't want it to define you, but also you want to hold people accountable, and he definitely, yeah,
Well,
he
more
owes you more than that. In my opinion.
and to a certain extent, I agree with that. But when we talk about accountability, I think that should actually come from ABC Network because they're the ones who employed producers who
Yeah.
obviously are paid to stir up the drama. Our show's not
Yes.
scripted. Everyone assumes, oh, is it scripted? No.
Yeah.
But you have a lot of behind the scenes conversations with producers where they're giving you false senses of confidence, right? Or
Yeah.
they're saying, hey, we heard this about Cam, or heard this about Mike or whoever, and that's kind of how drama is in essence produced.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming that the producers put something in Mike's head to make him feel that he needed to go rescue Hannah from
Yeah.
me from a very serious conversation. And one final thing I'll say about the whole Mike Johnson thing. So on one of the episodes when we were on a group date together, when he was having a serious conversation with Hannah about a miscarriage that his
Yeah.
girlfriend had, I had no idea that's what they were talking about, right?
Yeah.
Because I was in another room and I just had the producer say, Cam, hey, now's your time, like to go
Yeah.
in there. And when you're out there, it's awkward because I didn't want to be that guy who
Yeah.
interrupted people on dates or interrupted serious conversations. But when you're there, you have no context of what they're
Yeah.
talking about. So when I went in there, I just assumed it was my time to talk. And I was like, hey guys, like wrap it up type of thing. Because I didn't know. And then I go back and then I'm like, oh, okay. And then they come back 3 times. And I had to basically interrupt them. And so when I saw the episode and I actually saw that he was telling Hannah about, his girlfriend's miscarriage, I immediately texted him. I said, bro, I'm so sorry. I had
Yeah.
no idea that's what you guys were talking about. Had I known that, I would have given you as much time
Yeah.
as you needed to do that. But I've gotten nothing in return from him in regards to my serious conversation, what I've gone through.
Yeah.
So
That brings me to this was actually a question come up by Nicole. She's on our team on in the batch. She's actually in the room right now, but
Oh,
I just wanted
morning,
to
Nicole.
she says hi. But she wanted to know if you know, and I don't know if you can say this or any, India, but if while you were on there on either seasons, if you
Mhm.
noticed it, did ABC employ anyone on the show that was differently abled? Like not
Yeah,
contestants, but like behind the scenes?
right. That's a great question. No one's asked me that before. And just looking back, um, nothing that was like really outwardly visible, I would say. So like I didn't see any
Yeah.
production members in a wheelchair, for example, or
Yeah.
I didn't see any that appeared to have any limb difference or limb loss like me.
Yeah.
But oftentimes the producers are wearing all black all the
Okay.
time, like to stay like kind of incognito.
Yeah.
So I can't say if they definitively have or
Yeah.
have not, but I would assume, especially like the camera crew and some of the production crew, that is a pretty physically tolling job. They may
Yeah.
not have people in there just because of what the physical demands of the jobs
Yeah.
are. Not that an amputee couldn't
Yeah.
perform that, but I just didn't obviously see anybody
Yeah.
on the production team. But man, I hope if anything that they learn from my life and my story. And there was a contestant, I think a couple years ago, Sarah, who had limb difference. She was born without an arm, but she was casted that way. But beyond that, I don't really recall any other
Yeah.
cast mates or cast members that have had visible physical disabilities or physical
Yeah.
challenges.
Because I definitely think that would help them not make some of the mistakes that they have in the past, to have, people who might understand more and, maybe have more empathy than, especially in production roles like producers and editors.
Right. Yeah. And I talked about this, I think, on a recent podcast, just this whole notion of how diversity and inclusion is becoming not necessarily just a buzzword, but an important mission for brands
Yeah.
and obviously shows and really our society in general. So when you think of diversity inclusion, that should not be just subjected to people's race or sexual orientations. It's diversity of people with disabilities too, right?
Yeah.
So you have to be mindful and inclusive in that. And definitely back in 2019, when I was on the Bachelorette, and they knew about my lymphedema, which is the
Yeah.
disease I have, but there were no attempts to allow them to use my platform to bring awareness to it, or let alone make them aware of the severity of it when I was telling Hannah about my life
Yeah.
story, basically. So
Which do you think that was a big missed opportunity, especially because like while like cancer is very widespread, like this particular one is somewhat rare in the States. Like I read that there was 2,000 cases, 200,000 cases a year. So I think this could have brought
well,
a lot of
Well, just one quick point of clarification.
yeah,
So, lymphedema, the disease that I have, it's not always associated with cancer. A lot of it
yeah,
is. So, like, especially breast cancer patients, over 40% of patients who have breast cancer and they have chemo, radiation, or
yeah,
have lymph nodes removed under their arms, or even mastectomies where the breast tissue is removed, over 40% of those patients end up getting secondary lymphedema. But
wow,
overall in the United States, the accurate figure, there's 10 million Americans with
wow,
lymphedema. So that's more than AIDS, MLS, and Parkinson's combined. That's kind of the little data point we like to use, because
yeah,
you hear the disease
those,
states like AIDS, Parkinson's, and muscular dystrophy, for example, and you think that's so many Americans or so many people in the world who have that. But in comparison to lymphedema, lymphedema has so much more
yeah,
patients, but it's so understudied in medical school, and not a lot of people in the public really know about it. So it's actually not that rare, but the
yeah,
conversations like this that we're having is much more rare. But that's why it's important to have this. And to answer your question, it was definitely a huge missed opportunity on ABC Network to allow me to actually air what I said, and even the word lymphedema that was edited
yeah,
out in Paradise and in Bachelorette and even in the Men Tell All and in the Bachelor in Paradise reunion, where I literally made a
yeah,
shirt that says, I have lymphedema, Google it, blurred out like I was wearing some sort of curse word or something copywritten. So, yeah, I'm pretty bummed about that. And the only thing I would ever do to be associated with the franchise again is if they had me come back on some live taping or Zoom in or whatever, and allow me the time and the space to actually tell my real story and to bring that awareness.
yeah,
I don't foresee them doing that, but who knows? I know interviews like this and some others that I've done in the past have gotten some good circulation. So we'll see.
Yeah, because I think just getting that word to, I think at the time like 6 million people
Oh
watching.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
just getting that word out. Let's see. Another question that we got were well, I think you answered, but it was like, how do you feel you were portrayed on the show?
Yeah, I mean, villain is one word that immediately comes to mind because that's just what's known in the franchise, right? You're either the good guy or the villain, or you're like the kind of the cameo person who just kind of pops in and gives commentary on what's going on, but you're not really like a front runner or someone who
Yeah,
is a true love interest of the lead per se. So I definitely got that label of villain. But thank goodness for Luke Parker because he came in and really stole the show on my
yeah,
season. So and I was just obviously right after the show, you play all these hypothetical things in your mind of like, well, what if the whole pity rose situation never happened and I got to continue having good momentum, building the
yeah,
relationship with Hannah. How far would it have gone?
yeah.
We'll never know.
Uh, One thing I saw is I saw on your Instagram that you just got your prosthetic. How has it been since you got it?
So today's actually a huge day. So what I posted on my Instagram, so it's almost like test driving a car. So
Yeah.
there was a couple of different manufacturers of the prosthetic leg that I got to kind of test drive. And because I changed my mind last minute last week and went with a different manufacturer than my clinical team was thinking I was going to proceed with, it just prolonged things just a couple of days. So I'm actually getting my leg today this
Oh,
afternoon at 1
awesome.
p.m. So I'll be sure to share that exciting moment with you guys. But yeah, that is going to be awesome, mainly because right here for the past month and a half, I've been using these forearm crutches, which
Yeah.
is it's great for building your upper body strength. I just didn't want to do the standard crutches because like using that all the time, your underarms get pretty sore. And part of now being an amputee, which I will be an amputee for the rest of my life,
Yeah.
unless there's some crazy stem cell type of
Yeah.
technology that comes out where I'm like a lizard and my tail regrows or
Yeah.
my leg
And I
regrows.
mean,
But
fingers crossed. Yeah. Like,
that would be awesome. Like,
yeah. Like,
well, even with prosthetics, I joke with my buddies. I said it would be awesome if Elon Musk got into that field and I get a Tesla leg a
yeah.
couple years down the road, and that's actually not too far fetched
Yeah.
of
There's a lot.
a
Yeah.
reality. So yeah, so I'm excited for that just to get my mobility back, and I'm still going to have to do pretty extensive physical therapy, learning how to properly use the prosthetic leg, putting it on, taking it off, different movement patterns, sitting down, getting up, carrying groceries, like all of these everyday life activities that people who don't have a disability don't have to think about. Like
Yeah.
I'm already type A over analytical anyway, so now that I literally have to think about each step I take, you know,
Yeah.
um, hopefully that subsides
Yeah.
relatively quickly.
But that'll be exciting today. That's great.
Yeah, thank you.
Uh, Another one was just how has life changed since the Bachelorette? So I think they mean like immediately after.
Yeah, immediately after the transition period, basically like once you get sent home, or if in the case of a winner who makes it to the end
Yeah.
and you finally get your cell phone back and you can turn it on, and then the flight back to your home wherever you flew out of prior to taping, it was Austin, Texas for me at the time. It was just so surreal flying back because we were under NDA, so I couldn't even respond to like the hundreds of text messages or thousands of DMs that we got because we're
Yeah.
under contract, very confidential. But for me, I think the biggest thing is when I came back, I was forced to make a decision if I wanted to go back to my previous job of selling software in Austin, or if I wanted to just take kind of a little bit more of a sabbatical and kind of do some soul searching and figure out, okay, this is a once in a lifetime opportunity, as in like being on the show and getting some of that national recognition. How can I leverage that? In other words, use the platform
Yeah.
for something good. I knew because of my edit and me not ever being a fan favorite, as they say, wasn't really putting me in a position to be a full-time influencer like a lot of the
Yeah.
cast members are. That's just the reality of the show now, and how prevalent social media is. You can literally create a brand for yourself out there,
Yeah.
hope and pray you get a good edit and America likes you, hopefully get a huge uptick in followers. So all of a sudden, all these
Yeah.
brands are reaching out to you and paying you tens of thousands of dollars to do a single post. Like,
Yeah.
I understand why that can be a hidden agenda or motive for a
Yeah.
lot of people going into it.
Yeah, I definitely
Um,
think that cottage industry that they've built kind of has made it less about, finding, and I mean, how far, I'm not saying anyone's there for the wrong, or any of that, but
for the wrong reasons, yeah,
yeah, for the
a
wrong,
lot of them are. A
but,
lot of them are.
500,000 followers, I'm sure would be nice to a lot of people. So,
100%, and
yeah,
it all kind of depends on what you want to do with that platform. Are you doing it to sell products, like to truly influence,
yeah,
or like me, where I do it to um, talk about lymphedema, for
yeah,
example, talk about amputation. And I'm a man of faith, and so I like to talk about my faith on there, but also on that topic, like, I'm not trying to be this crazy evangelical Christian out there preaching the
yeah,
gospel to everybody, because for me, when I was a non-believer, that didn't resonate with me. I didn't want to go around preaching to everybody and judging people who weren't Christians, because that's actually not Christian like
yeah,
anyway. So I'm trying to be, not necessarily discreet, but open about that, but not to where people get turned off and don't want to see some of the amputee content I have, or the lymphedema content, or just regular stuff like last night going to the Astros baseball game with a
yeah.
group of my friends.
Getting to share that fun stuff with, people that want to see you have fun. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Just a real life me, and not just someone who, filters pictures and comes up with catchy captions and just makes everyone thinks that your life is all perfect, because it's
Yeah.
not. It's not that way.
Yeah. Another one we got, I don't know, is there anyone from Bachelor Nation you're still interested in?
Um, honestly, like, when you get the treatment that I did, um, for lack of better words, watching the show can be kind of triggering, in the sense that, like, when I see someone who is a villain or getting a bad edit, my heart immediately goes out to that person, because I don't know if he or she is actually a really good person in real life, and they kind of fell victim to the same thing I did. And then same thing with seeing people who are like put on this pedestal, just being great men or women. And then you hear stories on TMZ, a couple months later, or you
Yes.
see stuff on Reality Steve talking about this and that and the other, and how they actually are. So I really have steered clear from being an avid follower of the franchise. I mean, there's things that I just can't avoid, like being
Yeah.
tagged in certain posts. And obviously, my web browsers are pretty much cookied with all that stuff, just because
Yes.
of my past search history and whatnot. So I have a general sense of kind of who's in and who's out of the franchise. And I don't want to be bitter towards the
No.
Bachelor Nation either, because it did give me a lot of great opportunities. Like, obviously, we're having this conversation now,
Yeah.
which is great. But for people in there now that I'd be interested in, nobody's name really comes to mind. But I think one missed opportunity in Paradise, and a lot of people have said this, was I should have maybe paid a little bit more attention to Annalise,
Okay.
because I think we were both at that time of the age and of the headspace of wanting to actually settle down and have a family,
Yeah.
and get married, and all that stuff. And I think she may have had felt that a little bit with Chris B, who ended up being engaged to Katie Morton and then calling that off. But I think if I would have been a little bit more intentional in having conversations with her, there may have been something a little bit more there. But I was so hyper focused on Kaylin, because she's who I wanted to be my bachelorette
Yeah.
before I knew it was Hannah. So I kind of put Kaylin on this pedestal, but I didn't really know that her and Dean kind of had this thing going on prior to taping even beginning. So, is what it is.
Yeah. I get what you mean. Do you think that like on Paradise more than maybe the other shows, they almost discourage the kind of settling down? They kind of want you to like, I don't know, be with as
Well, I was just gonna say, I think that the reason why Paradise is set up the way that it is, because a lot of the contestants who come on it are obviously past contestants from a Bachelor, Bachelorette, who may have had a bad experience like I did. So you're
yeah.
literally there on this whole notion of redemption. Or maybe you were a lead and you just didn't have the right batch of people, per se. But there is something kind of special about going out there in that environment and meeting people who literally went through the same type of social experiment as you
Yeah.
did. So you kind of have that instant bond and camaraderie. And these are people who especially if you're there and there's people who've been in Bachelor Nation for a while. Like, for example, I got along with Chris B really well, and he's been on
Yeah.
more Bachelor Nation shows and spinoffs than anybody else. So
Yeah.
he's kind of an OG, but he was really kind to me, really polite, and gave some really good advice for things to consider, with things outside of filming, going back home. But I think just in general, though, the process can work if those two people are actually really serious about the sanctity of marriage and want to move forward with that versus it being more of a uh, publicity stunt, knowing that,
Yeah.
hey, we can ride this relationship or this engagement out for as long as we can and make some money off of it. And hey, if we fall in love in that way and through that process, great. But if not, we can at least say we tried
Yeah.
and get an uptick in our social media following.
Yeah.
That's just the reality of what it is now.
There's one tweet from Mike Fleece, the creator of the whole thing, that a lot of people wanted you to react to, if you don't mind me.
Sure. Yeah.
It's just like he's posted it a couple days ago, and it's just, here we believe that casting decisions should never be exploitative. There are more things important than ratings. And a lot of people thought that was kind of a double standard thing for him to say.
Well, look, the fact of the matter is, so I don't do Twitter. Was that a
Yeah,
tweet he sent
it
out?
was.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but I definitely did see that reposted on some Bachelor Nation Instagram post, I believe, and I think one of the things on the screen capture was Chris Randone, his response to it,
Right.
which
Yeah.
was basically saying like, this is BS, Mike. If you
Yes.
actually cared, like there were people who were on suicide watch and the network did nothing. You
Yes.
don't care about people's mental health. And so to me, that tweet just seems almost like it was boilerplate legal talk that maybe a network attorney said, hey, say this so we can be safeguarded. And it's no different than like brands embracing Pride Month, but not actually doing anything for the cause.
Yeah.
I think there was one stand-up comedian who said, I forget what it was, but it was something along the lines like, no one cares that Triscuit crackers are LGBTQ plus
Yeah.
proud, because what have they actually contributed to
Yeah.
the society other than putting a rainbow box on for the Pride Month? But so again, I think it was just Mike's way of I don't think it was sincere at all, because if he truly believed that and the network truly believed that, they would have actually reached out to me a long time ago when my amputation a month and a half ago was getting national headlines and People
Yeah.
Magazine and Entertainment Tonight. Like, I know they're seeing that, but they chose not to respond, and they chose to edit out my disease, lymphedema, that I was very open about on all of my seasons of Bachelorette and Bachelor in Paradise.
Yeah, because it does seem like instead of actually fixing the problems they have, once these cracks start to show, instead they just have a tighter and tighter grip on everyone involved. Because I know a lot of times now they don't want people talking to certain people. Like, I know Reality Steve has been saying he has a hard time getting people just to talk to him. So it seems
Yeah, because
like
they're
that.
very strict. The network does a do not talk to him, do not talk to any other people. And that's how Reality Steve gets most of his information. It's bitter castmates who get eliminated and like, well, screw this. I owe the network nothing. So they'll go tell him in secret. And Steve is really good about not making your information public if you request him not to. But I know a lot of people have had some issues with him, but I have nothing but good things to say just from my personal experience, because he's always portrayed me in a positive light. And when I did one of his podcasts recently, he was very, very much supportive of what I've gone through and just how ridiculous it was that none of the guys on my season have reached out to me, and which they still haven't. If you take out that half-ass apology that Mike Johnson gave or didn't give.
Because it feels like they just, instead of maybe getting people that understand these issues and getting them on set, he just wants to keep a tighter lid on everything and maybe not let it get out.
Yeah, I mean, and if you think about too, like when things with like shortly after George Floyd and the BLM movement was gaining a lot of momentum, that's when they finally decided to have the first male black lead. So that was very much reactionary. Like, I'm sure everyone's glad that they did it, but it's like the timing of it just seems so disingenuous. It's like you had 20 years prior to that you had several opportunities. It's not like there weren't eligible male Black
Yeah.
contestants on The Bachelorette in years past who couldn't have been a great Bachelor lead, but they just chose not to year
Yeah.
over year.
Yeah. Until it was beneficial to them in that way. And then the
Right.
other thing is, I know you have a documentary coming up. Is there anything you can tell us about that?
Sure. So the thing that's been cool about the documentary and really therapeutic is, we started filming in, I want to say late March, so pre-surgery. So kind of talking about my life and everything that's led up to that point, and even getting content the day of surgery and then day after with the recovery, and that's where we're at in production now. So we don't have a definitive wrap date of when we want to conclude the story, mainly because I'm still living it right now.
Yeah.
So I'm actually having a call with my producer later this morning, the documentary project, to kind of see what the next steps are in terms of filming, and kind of like what's our conclusion, how are we wrapping this up,
Yeah.
because there's just been a lot of cool things and amazing things that have surfaced since the surgery, which I can't really talk about now, but you'll definitely
Yeah.
see it in the documentary. But definitely stay tuned on my social media. I'll definitely be announcing different milestones, release dates, etc., because we're still figuring out distribution. Do we want to go straight to a streaming platform like Hulu or Netflix,
Yeah.
or PureFlix, for example? That's more of a
Yeah.
Christian-based platform. Or do we want to enter it in the film festival circuits and kind of do that first,
Yeah.
hopefully, or maybe get some accolades and awards for that,
Yeah.
and then pitch it to streaming platforms? So we're still kind of figuring that part out. But most importantly, like me living day to day, and I'm living the documentary
Yeah.
now, so we can't really script that or know
Yeah.
where that's going, because you want it to be as organic and real as possible, and that's the
Yeah.
whole purpose of the documentary. So
Yeah. I
yeah.
think that's what's going to make it great is that it'll be that organic and see post and after and just, your whole life.
Right. And actually having a production team that I can trust, and I know they're
Yeah.
not gonna villainize me.
Yes.
So that was honestly a really therapeutic thing too, is just like
Yeah.
getting mic'd up again, where it's like the hidden mic, and just having a camera crew organically follow me around as I was navigating my day or different doctor's appointments and things like that. Being able to trust again was something that took a little bit of therapy for me to get in that space again, after what happened to me in Bachelor World.
Yeah. I'm so glad that happened for you too. Going through, because I looked through who some of the producers and some of the people working on it, and they definitely, I don't want to say anything bad about The Bachelor in any way, but they definitely have a different way of producing, and the projects that their names are on are definitely different than The Bachelor.
Totally. And my executive producer, Julie, she has the coolest last name, Mila Cotois, which is like, it sounds like miracle in French.
Yeah.
But she was one of the producers on the Oprah show many
Yeah.
years ago. So she knows what she's doing, and is someone who, when she's doing the interviews with you, you just feel the immediate sense of trust, and there's no manipulation or curveball questions she's going to throw me to kind of throw me off of my heart and my game, and how I'm, laying it all on the line there when we're having those moments of filming.
And then lastly, we just wanted to ask you about your advocacy work right now and how that's going. And we know that you're working with the organization with Kathy Bates and
Yep.
everything. So what can you tell us about that and maybe what people can do to help or
Sure. Yeah. So on the lymphedema side of things, that is the nonprofit I work with, Kathy Bates. She's our national spokesperson, and it's called Learn, which is
yeah.
just an acronym for Lymphatic Education and Research Network. So if people just want to learn, pun intended, more about lymphedema or lymphatic diseases, again, a lot more common than you would think. And I would guarantee you that you have a loved one or someone in your community that has it, that doesn't even know that they have it, and you start to do a little bit of just high level research, and you see pictures of patients with a swollen arm or a
Yeah.
swollen leg, or really anywhere, that's not always fat. And that's what's sad too, is a lot of these patients get fat shamed, and they're put on these diet and exercise protocols that's not even appropriate for them, and they don't respond to it, so they
Yeah.
get into a deeper pit of depression. So that would be my big encouragement, is to have people check out lymphaticnetwork.org. That's the website for Learn. And then just follow me on the Instagram and Facebook pages, and I post a lot of different content. about awareness for lymphedema and amputees now that I'm in that community. And this little shirt that I'm wearing that says above and below,
Yeah.
I'm actually starting a podcast with a fellow amputee. I'm above knee and he's below knee.
Yeah.
And he's an older Black man and I'm a younger white guy. So we have a really cool relationship and a different dynamic. And
Yeah.
he's been an amputee for over 35 years. So it's longer than I've been alive. So we're hoping to launch that sometime here by the end of this month. But I'll put more information on that on my socials, and I'm always an open book too. So I try to respond to as many DMs as I can. So people don't hesitate to just reach out to me directly, and we'll take it from there.
Well, that's awesome. And lastly, somebody wanted to ask, what if you're still dating right now after the surgery, and what you're looking for? I don't know if they're trying to
Oh
meet
yeah,
you or anything, or
sure. I mean, I'm definitely still wanting to be married and have kids.
yeah,
That's a huge priority in my life. But as I'm recovering now, that's my primary focus. And like coincidentally, I feel like when I'm going to be on that path of just so focused on like intentional self-care, from my health with my, my new prosthetic leg and the advocacy work, that's when an organic connection will happen. So I'm not in a relationship now. I'm definitely open to dating, but I'm not like on dating apps or actively asking my friends, hey, do you know anybody? Do you know anybody? But again, I'm open to it. So if there's anyone who is interested, shoot your shot.
there you go. All right, and I think that's it for us. I just wanted to ask if when you're ready to plug your podcast and your documentary, if you'd want to come back on and plug it
Absolutely.
with
Yeah,
us, because that
I'd
would be
love to.
great.
Yeah. Yeah, I've really enjoyed the conversation, Devin. And is it Sarah? Is that your partner that's there?
Nicole.
Oh, Nicole. Thank you, Nicole. Appreciate it. I'm terrible with first names. I was way off. Sarah, Nicole, way off.
All right. And is there anything else you want to plug? I know people can find you at your Instagram, and you're not on Twitter.
No, not on Twitter.
Yeah.
I may get on there eventually, but there's just so many platforms right now. I don't need more distractions outside of my
Yeah.
daily work, and I feel like I won't do TikTok because all of the cool TikTok videos make their way to Instagram eventually
Yeah.
anyway. And I'm a terrible dancer, so I don't see myself doing any of those TikTok dances, or I can't stand the lip sync videos on TikTok or Instagram. You will never find me doing one of
Yeah.
those, or any videos with that robotic lady narrator. I can't stand those. So
Oh,
please
yeah.
don't send any of those my way, people. We got to have that fad die quickly.
We'll definitely have to
So
tell that to the person who's asking what you look for. And it's like, don't send them these.
don't send that. Yeah. Really just someone with a great sense of humor and someone who wants a family. That's what I'm looking for. So
All right. Well, thank you so much for coming on.
awesome. Thank you guys. Y'all have a great rest of your day.